Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games podcast for episode 114. Today we have our impressions on the biggest game of 2024 so far, Final. We're calling it Final now. Final Fantasy Rebirth. Plus, we have some casting news out of The Last of Us Season 2 and much, much more. Joining me back in the saddle, back in the dumpster boy, Cayman Darty. Cayman, how you doing?
Man, let me tell you, I'm doing a lot better than I was like a day ago.
Yeah?
So,
would you say
yes?
Would you say you've had a rebirth?
I would say I've had a rebirth.
Come on, I mean it's right there. Come on,
It seems like my organs are finally functioning correctly, at least for right now.
Yeah, at least for right now. And hey, look, if it all goes south live on the podcast, that's content, baby.
Don't worry.
Baby.
I got a puke bucket right next to me, we're good to go.
Haven't cut a clip for this podcast in weeks, but the next one's just going to be you just vomiting while we're talking about Final Fantasy Rebirth. Let's get it. That other voice you've heard his voice before. He's making his return. He's our resident Final Fantasy VII expert, Mondo, aka Chancletamangu. Mondo, welcome back to the show, doggy dog. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Hopefully, I get to be part of this viral clip. You know,
look, he starts throwing up, you start throwing up, I start throwing up.
It'll be like
we'll get a million views.
It'll be like the scene from Stephen King's Stand By Me when they're in the blueberry pie eating contest and like the whole audience is just vomiting at once. That's it. That's the show, guys. That's the show.
Bound to happen. Terry in the chat, is Cayman sick? What's happening?
No, brother, you don't even want to know.
Brother. He's been out for the last
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And I almost missed this episode. So it was almost 3 weeks that you guys weren't.
But he was like, Mondo's gonna be here.
That's what I said. I literally told Patrick, I said, I can't miss this. Yeah. I can't miss this.
You've missed most times that he's been on, so you had to be here this time. We got to bring a new streak.
He's been consistent though. Yeah, like missed like the first two, but he's been on it after that.
He's been back. Yeah. Well, we have a lot of video game stuff to talk about because this is the Spotlight Games podcast, where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod, or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/SpotlightGamesPod, just like Terry is, just like Cognitive Clips is. So be sure to follow us there so that you're notified when we go live, so you can be part of the conversation. Also, if you're here live Wednesdays, we've been doing The Last of Us Part 2 stream with Rose and the Six. We're taking a break this week. We're coming back next week. Rose is about to be out of town. Not going to be streaming tomorrow night, but I'm going to be streaming something later this week. Not tomorrow night, not Wednesday, but we are going to stream something, probably Helldivers 2. We'll see. We're going to get there. We're going to cross that bridge. But this week, no Last of Us Part 2 stream. We'll be back next week. And finally, join the Discord. We got a fun little Discord where we discuss what we're playing and generally goof off together about video games. So if that sounds like something you'd like, click the link in the description or find it in the bio of our socials to join the Discord. Everyone in the chat so far in the Discord, I don't want to speak for them, but I'm gonna. They're having a great time. You can have a great time in the Discord as well. Also, we got Rabbit128 in the chat. John, thanks for being here. Boys, it's been years in the making. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but it's not quite time to talk about the Rebirth yet. We're gonna. But first, we got to talk about what else we've been playing before we just talk all about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Cayman, you've been away for a few weeks. What have you been playing, if anything? Maybe you've just been playing the game of staying alive. But
that's been the most of the time. That is what it's been. Yeah. Is the game of like bouncing between hospitals and having shit shoved down my throat to look at my internal organs. And
but hey, you've paid for the battle pass, which is
I did. Yeah,
you get really taken out of your bank account.
Believe me, the deductible's been hit for the battle pass, guys. We've done it. We've done it. So as sad as it sounds, I relegated myself, and if you're part of the Discord, you're part of the joke that happened. I decided I was like, I'm gonna play something on the portal because like I can't leave my bed. Like that's how bad we got. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna play something I could play that's like good for the portal. And I feel like a lot of times best portal games are like turn-based RPGs, like perfect for that. However, in this instance, I played a really shitty one called Costume Kingdom.
Ooh.
Terrible game. Don't recommend it. So the thing, though, is super easy platinum.
We love that.
But here's the problem. This is my platinum number 68. So what do you celebrate your sexy platinum number 69? So I threw it out to the audience in Discord, and they rose to the challenge.
What was it called again?
It's called Sakura Succubus. It is a Japanese visual novel. And what I can tell you is,
I'm bringing up images. Actually, maybe I shouldn't.
There's been worse on Twitch. I'm just saying.
We're gonna do a very, very quick share. This is what that game looks like in a Google image search.
So was my wife
what I was expecting?
Was my wife ashamed of me? 100% she was ashamed of me.
Yes.
Did I get my platinum number 69 in two minutes? Because you literally can you hit a button and it just skips the entire game and gives you a platinum. Yes, you fucking can. Yeah. And it was $5. Was it $5 well spent? Probably not. But was it $5 worth doing for a fucking joke? You better believe it. So we got a sexy platinum number 69. And literally, I think that was the last game I've touched. But the energy is back. The problem, though, I'm facing is that my wife, and I'm going to do a real shout to a real game. There's this little game that's currently on sale during PlayStation's March Madness sale, I think is what they call it, called Coral Island. And essentially, Coral Island is like, from what she explained to me, was like, if you ripped all of the best parts of Stardew Valley and then ripped out some of the best parts of Animal Crossing, put it together in one game, and that's exactly what you have. Hell yeah. So it is a cozy gamer game, and she's been hogging up the PlayStation right now because that's all she's like, I can't play literally anything else. You're not allowed to have the PlayStation back. This is what I'm playing. She's been loving it. So there's just a shout out to our cozy gamers. This is out right now on Steam, and it's on PlayStation. I can't testify if it's on Xbox, but I know for a fact it's not on Switch yet. But it will be coming to Switch. So if you are a cozy gamer, she's really been enjoying this game, really been loving it. So I would say, like, hey, it's got a really cool art style from what I can tell. The music's really cool, and it's very inclusive too. There's like a lot of really cool stuff that she showed me that I was like, oh, that's like really fucking dope that they would include something like that in a game. For everyone to feel like they can be part of it. So shout out to this game. I think it's like currently right now, like maybe $20 or $30, something like that. Give it a shot if you like those types of games. She's been loving it. So, and she's already put in like 20+ hours. So nice. I think you'll get your money's worth. Hell yeah.
Terry in the chat says, I've heard Coral Island is good. Might check it out after I spend at least 200 hours in Final Fantasy VII. Me too, dog. We're going to get there. Mondo, have you been playing anything other than Final Fantasy VII Rebirth lately, or is that just completely encapsulated your life?
I have been playing other stuff, but before I get to that, in reference to his 69th platinum, getting in 2 minutes, the first thing I thought of was, wow, talk about a 1 minute man. You know what I mean?
It's a national average. Guys. This is a national average. Yeah.
But outside of Rebirth, that has, literally taken over my life since Thursday.
Yeah.
Putting a little time on Persona 5 Royale.
Nice.
Started Persona 3 Reloaded earlier this month too, which is the game I'm currently like streaming. I told myself that I'm only going to stream that game. I'm not going to play it off the stream.
Cool.
And that's about it. Like that's all I've been playing. Oh, and a little bit of Dead Cells here and there. Like whenever I just want to itching for like 15 minutes of something to play, I'll slap my Backbone on my phone, or I'll get on my Steam Deck and I'll play a little Dead Cells.
Hell yeah.
I love Dead Cells. Oh my gosh.
It's a great game.
Yeah, they're about to get me for all the DLC. I haven't bought all the DLC yet, but I'm gonna pull the trigger.
Yeah, that Castlevania DLC I've heard is great.
Yeah, but yeah, and then other than that, I'm Reborn.
Yeah,
like, goodness gracious.
Yeah, you are. Before we talk about that, I'm just gonna keep teasing it. I want to talk a little bit more about Balatro because here's the thing.
Yeah,
y'all sleeping on Balatro. This game fucking rips, dude. Even if you aren't big on the deck builders, Cayman, just give it a shot.
Can you pull this up, please? I want to see this, please.
So Balatro, I talked a little bit about last week when Jordan, aka Cognitive Clips, was on the show. But Balatro, the kind of the single sentence pitch is it is a poker roguelike. Let me share this tab instead. And so essentially each run that you do, you're building this deck. You know, you start with the normal 52 deck of cards, but you can get all sorts of multipliers and things that kind of adjust the way that, like, the strategy that you can implement. Maybe you're going like a diamonds heavy strat. Maybe you're doing like, I'm going to put all my cards into pairs and two of a kind, or pairs and two pair like hands. Things like being able to get more and more and more points just from those specific hands, and just ignore, even if you have like a royal flush, I'm not going to play it because I'm going to get more points just by playing one single pair. And throughout that, these jokers that they're showing on the screen now kind of change a lot of what those strategies can be. Maybe you'll get like a ×10 multiplier by having each individual club. So if you do like two pair, they're all clubs, it's like ×40. So like you can really kind of start deciding what strategy you want to use, because each kind of quote unquote enemy that you play, you're supposed to get to a certain number of points in order to like defeat that enemy. You're not like actually fighting something. It's just a matter of like, can I get enough points to move on, essentially. But man, it's so good. It is the perfect just one more, which turns into 5 more in terms of like roguelike. Like we're just talking about Dead Cells, like same thing with Dead Cells, just entirely different game genre. But it's so good. It's a bummer they recently were taken down on every store that's not PC. But because I guess there's a weird thing that happened with their ratings board. Like a ratings board changed it to where they're claiming that there's gambling in the game because it's poker, but there's not. Like there's no microtransactions or anything. Like you can't put money into it once you bought it. So they're trying to get it put back on store. So all of this to say, if you go try to get it on PlayStation right now, you might not be able to, but it is still on Steam at the moment.
But it's there. Like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, once it's back up, you can get it on PlayStation. Let me see if you can get it on Xbox, because I know for a fact you can get it on PlayStation. It's everywhere. It's Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and Mac. It's not on mobile, but I guarantee you it's coming to mobile, because this game would thrive on mobile. Because I've mostly been playing it on my Steam Deck.
I love me a good roguelike, and that sounds exciting.
It's so good. And like I was saying last week, like I'm not the biggest poker guy. I couldn't tell you the last time I played poker before this, but there's just something about it that is so addictive that, and like as long as you understand basic poker hands, that's all you need for this game. Like the rest is super, super simple. And like I said, like if you don't know poker hands, it might be a little tough at first, but man, if you like deck builders at all or roguelikes at all, check out Balatro, because I'm really, really impressed with how good Balatro is. Cayman, I know you're not big on the deck builders.
Patrick, I'm too dumb.
I don't know that you're too dumb for this one. Because do you know how to play poker?
No.
Okay, then maybe you're too dumb for this one.
Here's the thing. My brain doesn't work with card games. I can't build cards. That's why I struggle at Marvel Snap, was because I could never my strategy doesn't work that way. Like now, if you put like a good old JRPG, turn-based JRPG, and I'm like building up, like throwing down all sorts of shit to build up to drop like a massive spell or move or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like totally easy. My brain can compute, but when you put it in card form, like just can't. I literally could not put 2 and 2 together.
Sure,
just can't do it.
It just doesn't click. That's okay. There is a card game in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
This is why I haven't played the game yet. Actually, I saw the card game and was like, I'm going to spend way too much time not knowing how to play this game.
Let's pull the car over, put it in park, turn the ignition to off. Let's get out and let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Mondo, we brought you on the show because you're one of the biggest Final Fantasy VII fans I know. And you've played a lot more than I have so far. I think about triple the amount of time that I've played. So I want to kick it to you first and just general impressions so far of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'll give my general impressions. Cayman hasn't played the game yet. He's going to be asking us questions as we go through. But let's just talk about high level, like what do we think so far with one weekend under our belt of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Yeah, so full disclosure, I took time off to play Final Fantasy Rebirth. I'm currently just under 30 hours. I'm like 28 hours in. And wow, man. I knew I was gonna like this game. I knew I was gonna love this game. But man,
what chapter does that mean for you with 28 hours?
I just hit chapter 7.
Chapter 7, okay.
Yeah. Cool. I am not mainlining the game at all, like whatsoever. I finished most of the side quests. Actually, I finished all the side quests in the first region. I did a lot of stuff in the second, and moving around after that a little bit. I don't want to get into too much.
For sure.
But wow, man, like the charm, the music.
The music is incredible.
Oh my God. Like I was like, when they said, "Oh, we got 400 songs," I was like, "How?"
Right.
And then you do different things, and you're like, "Oh wow, this is just another version of." Oh my God!
Oh right, this is another Chocobo theme.
Yeah, another Chocobo theme. Like what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know what they say? There's never too many Chocobo themes.
No,
I agree.
I know that now. Yeah, 100%.
I agree.
Goodness gracious. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I watched the reviews, and some people said like, oh, like the Ubisoftification of like an open world, having a lot of things to do, things to clear. Listen, I'm having fun doing all that stuff. I'm not a completionist by any means. And don't get me wrong, I have a huge bias in the fact that I love this. I love the original game. But my goodness. And what segued us into this? Queen's Blood? Oh my God. They need to make Queen's Blood a game. I need an iOS Queen's Blood. I need an app on my phone. I need to play my friends. I need to wash people. I want to smoke people whenever I care. Man, they got me.
Someone explain this Queen's Blood to me.
So Queen's Blood it's a card game. It's technically a deck builder. So you might not be very happy about it, but it's essentially, and Mono, let me know if you think I'm off here. I feel like it is a card game MOBA in that you have your 3 lanes, and essentially you're trying to win. It's a lot like Marvel Snap in that ultimately you're trying to score more points than your opponent. And the best way to do that is by winning 2 of the 3 lanes. Because it's pretty unlikely that they'll outscore you with 1 lane if you win 2 of them. But you put different kind of different kind of characters down. It might be like a Mako soldier or a Shinra soldier. It might be like some of the creatures that you fight, and each of them have like a different point value. And with that, when you put it down, it starts to activate different like areas around you that you can then also play into. So ultimately, I think there's like maybe 6 play slots, something around there per lane, and you can only put your own card into a slot that you've like activated. And so part of it ends up becoming like a race to just activate more of the board before your opponent can. Because if that slot that they have turned red, you then turn green, they can't do anything on it because you've turned it green. Now they can maybe turn it red, based on certain cards, but it's ultimately like it's kind of a race to put as many cards down before the other person does, essentially. Okay. And ultimately score more points. Mondo, I'm going to kick it to you to talk a little bit about it, and I'm going to pull up a visual because I think a visual might help here too.
Because it sounds to me like a card version of a really popular game. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of, called Foam Stars.
Get the fuck out of here.
Oh God, you really had to go there.
I did. I mean, look, I haven't been here in 2 weeks. I've had to bring up Foam Stars. Yeah.
So the last game you played was Foam Stars before you came here?
Brother, if I put on Foam Stars, I would never stop. I actually somehow ended up watching like 30 minutes of like World Championship Foam Star match. I was like, 1, the game's been out like 3 days, I think.
Yeah.
And 2, no one's playing this game anymore. There's not a World Championship for this.
Yeah. So like Patrick was saying, it has these 3 lanes. 6. Well, This is 5 across. I feel like
I think this is the tutorial one.
Oh, okay,
yeah. I think it's smaller than they normally.
So now here's my thing. You see, like the Queen Bee card, all the cards have 5 lanes. I have speculated all my time playing. I'm 30 hours in. Do we eventually get 5 lanes? Or are we eventually going to advance to more lanes?
I think
that's my hope. That's my hope. And so like Patrick was saying, you start off with the first 3 rows in your side. When you place down a card, these yellow icons on each card, those are the spots it's going to activate based on where you put it. If you activate one spot multiple times, it'll then have 2 on it or 3.
So like this one in the bottom corner.
Like this one on the bottom corner has 2. So now you can put a card that requires 2 on that. And like you said, a big thing is forward movement, a lot of forward momentum. I remember I got to a point where I took a lot of like the early cards I had out and added some other cards that I thought were better. Mm-hmm. What I realized was I wasn't moving forward enough.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't getting enough spaces to put enough cards, or I never had a card to then turn their red space into a space I could use. And then eventually the game ends when 2 turns aren't taken in a row. So like if they can't put anything, and even if you could put something, if you have more points, you could just end the game right there and win.
Yeah.
But more often than not, you'll probably end up filling up the whole board. And yeah, I mean, I got a few strategies depending on what's going on. But, but yeah,
it's so fun. And also something I like about it too is that it seems like, because I've only put about 10 hours in, but it seems like the team had a lot of fun creating the characters that you fight in Queen's Blood. Because like the first guy you play, it's like Crybaby Ned. He's this guy that's just like,
well, they're all characters.
They're all crazy characters.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I've like seen people mention. I'm curious what you guys like your take on it. Patrick is someone who you didn't play the original.
I didn't play the original, so this is all new to me.
So one thing that I distinctly remember from Final Fantasy VII is that it is one of those games that it is super outlandish, but also super serious.
Yeah.
And so you'll have a moment of like, oh my, just tears pouring down your face. That's juxtaposed by what, like, just absolutely hilarious random bullshit. And that's why the game has such a weird, like, sense of humor about it. One thing I've been seeing, and I am curious, probably more so from Mondo, like, do you feel like that same energy is carried over from the first Final Fantasy now to Rebirth?
Yeah, and not to compare it to Final Fantasy 16, I'm really not trying to dog this game. It's a good game that I don't like. It is what it is.
Sure.
But one thing I got from that game is that I felt like it took itself too seriously, and for me that wasn't very Final Fantasy.
Sure.
This game does not take itself too seriously,
right?
And the moment to moment can go from like something serious to something heartfelt to something comedic. I remember I finished a side quest. It was like a multiple step side quest, and I got to the end of it. And like the story beat and like sort of what they referenced, I was like, man, like they poured a lot of love and respect into this game. Like,
yeah,
I walked away from that side quest thinking to myself, man, I could only hope that everything that is ever remade or recreated, retold, has this much love and respect put into it for like the original story it is made from. Because wow, so good. I went from laughs to like, oh man, wow, that got me a little teary eyed. Like the tear didn't drop, but my eyes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's definitely that kind of game. And as I got deeper and deeper, there's even more and more of that. There's just more and more. So
I've been so impressed so far. So yeah, like I said, 10 hours in, I really struggled with Final Fantasy VII Remake. It took me so long to finish that game, and I couldn't even really quantify why, but I just felt like so often when I was playing the game, I was putting the controller down, I was getting on Twitter, I was putting the controller down, I was playing a Hand of Marvel Snap, and I'd be like, why am I doing this? Like, just turn off the PlayStation if I don't want to be playing this game right now. And I think maybe it was the setting, maybe it was the story, I'm not totally sure what it was, but there was something about Remake. Ultimately, I had a positive experience with it. And I think it's a very well-made game, visually stunning, obviously. But there was just something about it. And so far, I'm so impressed that Rebirth has had absolutely none of that. And I think now that I have played this and I have this to compare to Remake, I think it is the open world of it all that is clicking for me for Rebirth. The open world in this game obviously is stunning. Like Final Fantasy VII, one of my favorite things about this, or Final Fantasy as a franchise, I always love that they will be like the gold standard for what a game can look like. And I am just so impressed by how good and how big this game is. And I'm only in the first section. So I'm sure that you mentioned you're at a second or a third section, Mondo. Like I don't know how many sections there are, but if they're all as gorgeous as this first section is, I can't wait to keep going. But also, like what you were saying, Mondo, with the Ubisoftification of this open world, man, it's clicking for me. All I want to do is just go check the boxes. And, Final Fantasy 16 and their little open zones, or, whatever they called it. Maybe they called it an open world. I'm not totally sure, but they were kind of those like truncated like maps that you would go to in Final Fantasy 16.
Almost like God of War.
Almost like God of War, yeah. And they had their side quests, they had their moments, and I would go through, and a lot of it I would just skip. And with this one, and I think it goes to what you were saying, Mondo, about 16 maybe took itself a little too seriously. With this one, there's a lot of like joy, and there's a lot of lightheartedness to a lot of these little things that you're doing. And also some of them are just like, hey, kill the thing, which, not to say that Final Fantasy 16 didn't have that, but it feels like the stakes are a lot lower with everything in a good way, in that I'm just here to have fun in this world at the moment. I've not progressed the story very much at all. I'm only in chapter 2. I'm in the first section. I'm doing all the side stuff, but I don't know that I'll 100% this game, but I am going to do so much in this game because I'm having such a good time with it so far. And not really sure what's happening in the story. I feel like maybe there's like a dual timeline situation. Not totally sure because I've not played the original, but
I want to, if you don't mind, I want to interject there. I do. So this is coming from someone who I've played the original Final Fantasy. I know the original story, like the back of my hand. And I think a lot of gamers, even if you never played Final Fantasy VII, you know the story of Final Fantasy VII because it's just such a prolific story. Something I've noticed that's been popping up in a lot of reviews and a lot of commentary is people are saying, not 100% necessary, or maybe even necessary at all, to have played Remake before jumping into Rebirth.
I don't know.
So I want to ask this because we got someone who's got what, Mondo, you're now what, pushing 40 hours.
Yeah.
Patrick, you're pushing 10 or right around 10. Both of you played Remake. I played didn't finish Remake. Life got in the way, pandemic specifically was just happening, but let's say, because I know for a fact we have people in the audience who didn't play Remake. What would you say to those people? Is this a place you can, or is it necessary for you to be like, you have to go back?
Am I just saying yes because I'm a Final Fantasy fan and feel like you should? I don't know. I'm trying to think right now. If I've played everything I've played so far and I didn't know the beginning part of the story, I don't know. I feel like they make references to sort of I don't even want to ruin Remake for anybody who hasn't played it, but they've made references to the things that happen in that game that, the theme of this game is like the unknown journey.
Sure. You
really only know that it's the unknown journey if you played Remake and you kind of know how we even got there to think that.
Here's what I'll say. I know that because I played Remake, I understand like the overall, like the one sentence pitch of what the story is, that you're trying to take down Shinra. They're a big bad corporation. They are fucking up the earth, not Earth. They're fucking up this world, like ecologically, and you want to stop that. Starting this game, I was about an hour in, and I was sitting here, I was like, they're, like you said, Mondo, they're referencing stuff, and I'm like, has there been a time jump? Has there, like, because I was unclear about how soon after Remake that this happened, because some of the things they were saying made it sound like a lot of time had passed. I think I've parsed out what they were referencing. I think they were talking about like a flashback that they were referencing that happens in the game. But I feel like as someone who has a base understanding of what happened in the first game, because I struggled, like I've already mentioned, getting through it, I feel like I am having as good a time as anyone with this game. But I am probably missing nuance because I don't have the original under my belt. And I'm probably missing nuance because there is just still parts of the story that I'm not understanding. I could go and read about it, but I'm afraid I'll spoil myself because there's just so much about this game. Really what I should do, I should probably like offline talk to someone like Mondo who knows the story and be like, can you just explain, like, without spoiling, like, what am I missing here? But I feel like they've done a good enough job explaining the given circumstance of these characters, who Cloud is, who Tifa is, who the whole crew is, who Sephiroth is as the villain.
Yeah, he's Kingdom Hearts guy.
Yes. Xehanort, is that what they called it? Or that he in the
he's literally
he's literally like the hardest boss in that game.
Oh, Sephiroth is in Kingdom Hearts? Okay. All right, because I remember they did the whole like add an X and just flip the letters.
I was gonna try to make another Foam Stars reference, but the Kingdom Hearts was like
it was right there.
It's right there.
But so all that to say, like, I feel like I think the answer to your question is technically like no, Cayman. I don't think you have to play Remake, but I do think it, at the very least, if you don't watch like a deep story recap of Remake, I think you'll end up wishing that you had more context. I think that would be my read on it. As someone who's only 10 hours in, maybe in 15 hours, I'll change that tune.
Yeah. And to that point, like, again, I think you could just play it and have a great time, but you will find yourself saying, all right, but like, how did we get here?
Yeah, for sure.
And you get that in the first part. And I don't think that they do the legwork to fill those gaps in, so you don't need to play part one. And that's why I kind of say that, because like if they had built the game where they were flashing back often, like they do it sometimes, but it's like it'll be like a 2-second flashback of like just sort of reminding you, oh, this happened before, by the way, if you played the original game. But you would only recognize it if you played the original game. It's not like a flashback that actually adds substance to the moment to give you that nuance. So that's why I would say no, but I guess you could play it. And I guess, and Patty, I've heard so many people say that of like, Remake didn't click for me.
Yeah.
This game is clicking for me. And I don't know what it is. Is it the open world? Like, I think the combat is just a little different, but a little different
does feel
in a nice
different.
way.
Yeah.
I remember when I was playing the demo, I was trying to parry, and I was like, this parry is a little off.
Yeah.
I think the reason it works is because we are in the midst right now, especially the early part of 2024. We're in the midst of a renaissance of Japanese game devs. Like they are in, like, they're having a fucking heyday right now. Yeah. You started Sega drops right off the bat. We get Sega dropping Infinite Wealth, which fucking banger of a game. We got Square Enix dropping Final Fantasy Rebirth, banger of a game. And then, like I've said offline to you guys, we have the Game of the Year frontrunner dropping in a couple weeks from Capcom, Dragon's Dogma 2. What I'm saying is
Fantasy 2.
We also had Grand Blue Fantasy. We, like, Japanese devs right now are crushing it in a way that I think I wouldn't be surprised if we have no fewer than 3, maybe even 4 Game of the Year contenders that came from Japanese devs, which is wild, because I think the last time we had some like a renaissance like this was probably back in like the PS1 days, or like even maybe PlayStation
2000s.
Yeah, like when that was like such a big thing. So like seeing this kind of renaissance is such a really cool movement and moment for us to all experience. I love the idea of this. I love the idea of that. And I am excited to finally get my hands on it. It just was like, it was a product of happenstance with me being so sick. Cause it was like, I do not want to play a game like this while I'm literally going in and out of like being half dead. Because I don't think it's a game that would do any justice if I can't remember half of what I'm playing.
Here's a question for you, Mondo. Yeah. We've talked on this show and a touch today, but not necessarily about this, with your relationship with Final Fantasy 16. Do you feel like the combat of 7, Rebirth, and Remake is like, I guess I feel like the combat's pretty similar to 16. It feels different, but it's pretty similar. And I know for you, one of your big issues with 16 is that it didn't feel like a Final Fantasy 16 game because it's like Devil May Cry. Do you feel that way with this? Or do you feel like there's enough of I'm choosing like spells and I'm flipping between party members that it kind of feels a little bit more like OG Final Fantasy to you?
Yeah. And I guess like, yeah, so my gripe with 16, and that's how I knew I wasn't going to like the game. I was like, oh, this is the Devil May Cry guy. I don't like Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I don't like those super actiony combo heavy games. It's just not my style. But I feel like for as much action as Remake and Rebirth have, there's still this touch of strategy that you still have to implement to beat something.
Yeah.
Like you can't just rely on square and triangle. Like you have, and even aside from that, you have to build up your ATB. Like you can't just do a spell. You can't just do your move. You have to earn that. Especially when you're not controlling your other characters, they're not even building their ATB in a like substantial way. So like it's this constant needing to pay attention to everything that's going on. Like I'll be fighting as Cloud and I'm like, damn, I could really use Eris Ward right now, throw that on the ground and get some extra like some extra spell damage because I could double up on my spells now. There's still this touch of strategy that
you're right.
I think is still there. That's what I enjoy about these games.
Yeah. I think you're right. Like because at first my gut was like this, it feels a lot really similar, but I think you're right on the strategy point because I remember with Final Fantasy 16, especially once you unlock a lot of, I don't remember how far you got in, but once you unlock, like I can do fire, I can do wind, I can do ice, I can do earth, like I can switch between these at will.
Just like Skull and Bones, the Ubisoft classic.
Just like the quadruple A Skull and Bones. With like I would go into a battle in 16 and I'd be like, okay, I forget the exact buttons, but like, okay, R1 square, R1 triangle, switch to the other thing, R1 square, R1 triangle. And it got into this, like, I was almost like doing combos of like, do the light special, the heavy special, switch to the other element, light special, heavy special, and then just X or square, triangle. So yeah, that's a good point. I think that strategy piece I do really like here.
And to add on to that, like, I didn't feel like 16 was very much of like an RPG. Like there were no elemental resistances and weaknesses where like there's actual like there's battles you go into a Rebirth, like you have to assess that enemy so you can know its weaknesses, you can know what you have to do to get it to a stagger and so on and so forth. By the way, shout out to Final Fantasy 13 that most people dislike. I love Final Fantasy 13 and that's where the stagger meter came from. And so like there's even that layer of strategy of like, okay, cool, like do one of my characters have ice? Because if not, then I got to back out of this fight because I'm probably not going to beat it. And just things like that. Like and so that's why I've liked about Final Fantasy. Also just the party system. That's another thing I love about this game. The fact that everyone is with you all the time.
Yeah. Even
if they're not in your party fighting, they're just out in the outskirts shooting, throwing stuff into the fight. Oh my God.
It's great.
What the hell, man? No. Yeah. So, and I guess the last thing I'll say is I was holding on to this answer in my head. You asked me how many regions there are. I don't know for sure, but when you get your first chocobo, he says, oh, he mentions that there's 6 other chocobo ranches. Gotcha. And so I imagine there's a chocobo ranch for each region. So that would make 7 regions. I'm not sure about that, but that's my guess of just paying attention to what they were saying.
That makes
sense.
And
my last thing to say about the open world is it is so rewarding. I hate that little kid.
Chadley
name. Chadley. I hate Chadley. Chadley pissed me off in Remake. I hated him in Remake, but I'm doing everything he wants me to do in this game. And after completing all the side missions in the first region and doing a lot of the open world stuff that you kind of have to do to beat that last side quest, wow, is it so rewarding.
Oh, cool.
Like so rewarding. I was like, oh wow, okay, so there is something you get from this.
That's cool.
From doing all of this. And yeah, so goodness gracious, man.
I'm
with whoever said it earlier. 200 hours. This might be the first massive like RPG that I actually platinum.
Yeah.
Like that's how much time I'm willing to put into this.
Hell yeah, love to hear it.
Well, if you're ever interested, let me recommend not getting the platinum for Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition.
Okay.
That platinum.
I thought you were going to recommend
that
the 2-minute platinum.
That platinum.
The premature
platinum. The premature platinum. That platinum tested all of my patience in the worst possible way. So Godspeed to you getting the platinum for this.
And I'm not a completionist by any means. I have 2 platinums, and one of those is the PlayStation Pack-in game.
Astrobot.
Astrobot and Spider-Man, which is even Spider-Man was an easy platinum in my mind.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Couple things. Jasker in the chat just started Final Fantasy 13, but also mentions that he's now wishing he had a PS5 to play this game. Get a PS5.
I mean, it's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that.
Don't you have infinite money?
Right. Don't credit cards. Come on. And then Cognitive Clip says audio keeps getting choppy, but apparently it's just me. Blah, blah, blah. I'll catch up with you. Blah, 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 whatever. Thanks, Jordan. But let us know if you're also having audio issues. He says it's only him, but please let me know if it is not only him because, okay, great. Jaskrin says audio sounds fine to me. Sorry that you're having some audio issues, Jordan. We'll see you next time. So a couple other Final Fantasy thoughts before we move on. With this, so we have one more remake on the way. We don't know what it's called yet. We don't know when it's coming. 4 more years probably sounds about right, since there's a 4-year gap between 1 and 2. It feels silly to already be asking, like, what's next? But the amount of success that this game is having and the amount of success that Final Fantasy as a franchise is having, I mean, they're probably working on, if it's not 16.2, it's 17 as well. But do we think they continue this remake strategy, similar to Resident Evil's remake strategy of remaking these old classics in a much bigger, bolder way? Do we think they continue doing that once 7 is finished? And if so, what do we think they would do next from the old stable? Would they do something newer and give it a refresh? Would they go back to the 6 or earlier came in? Let's start with you. What do you think would be next for this if they continue it?
It's interesting. I part of me doesn't believe they will. Reason being is because when you had Final Fantasy VII Advent Children in the movie, that was kind of like the catalyst for a lot of people being like, we're going to get a remake of this. And that's kind of what it came off of, right? So do I think? I honestly don't know. I think Square Enix, I don't know, maybe, but part of me just doesn't feel it. That being said, if they do remake, I can see them remaking a couple different titles. I could see Final Fantasy IV.
Okay.
I think that's a lot of people. That is like the 2D Final Fantasy that a lot of people know. Final Fantasy IV. We technically kind of got a remake with Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise of Final Fantasy 1. So I don't think we're gonna go back that far. That's a fucking deep cut. With that being said, if I had to pick, I would say I would love to see Final Fantasy X get a full, because I think that game already, when it was released, was graphically astounding. Still looks really good, but goddamn, I can only imagine the set pieces in that game being in 4K, being completely done up. But if I had to make a very logical guess, I could definitely see Final Fantasy IX. I think that's a game that a lot of people love. I think that's a game that they could, maybe not as much. I think the reason 7 works so well is because that's a game that most people latch on to in the Final Fantasy series. But I think if you had to choose from there, it really would be probably Final Fantasy 4, 9, or 10. Those would be the 3 that I would choose. But I think 9 makes the most sense, being what they end up going with.
That's interesting. I never thought that they would do something as early as 10, but that's kind of what I would want, I think. But what were you going to say, Mondo?
I was doing my Googles because if I'm not mistaken, they had announced a Final Fantasy 9 project. It's called Final Fantasy IX Memoria Project. And I don't know when that happened, if that was announcing them making a full-blown remake of the game. But it was last summer that came out. I don't know if you want to look up the video.
Yeah. Pulling it up now.
But but I'm on that same boat of 9 is one that is just beloved. I don't want to see 8 remade. That's all I gotta say. I don't want to see 8 remade. I'm not interested.
Look, as much as I have such fond memories of 8, but yeah, I could be a hard pass on seeing that being remade. And to that point, for as beautiful as 10 is, because I played 10 again
Because when I first played 10, I got stuck at the end of the game and I couldn't beat Sin. And so I had to like just dump it off there. And so I replayed it again 2 years ago. And man, that game really holds up well. And it is beautiful. The one scene I think about is when he's coming down to save Yuna while she's about to get married, and he's like just gliding down that tightrope. I remember when I saw that. Yeah. I remember when I saw that when like that game premiered. I was like, oh my god, this game looks incredible. But I feel like that's a game that set piece wise, all that would look amazing. But yeah, look at this. Yeah, go.
So I don't think that this is an actual Square Enix project, though. I think this is
this was a fan made.
This is a fan made thing. Okay, all right, cool.
Which is still like holy shit. If they fucking made this, fuck.
Yeah, and so I feel like that just goes to show how bad people even want that, right?
Yeah.
So and I got a lot of attention. There was a lot of fervor around that. They were like to the point where I was like, oh man, they're remaking 9, but apparently not. Apparently it's a fan project, but that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I also think if they did something like 9, because like 7, to your point, came in like when Advent Children came out. Like there's so much. The world of 7, seemingly, as someone who didn't play it, is so rich and has so much to it that it was kind of begging for more and more in terms of like making it a wider experience than the original. 9, I played 9. I think 9 is great, but it's a lot simpler than 7 seems. And so I could see that being just like a one and done.
Well, that's what I think though. I don't think they're the next one if they do a remake, which I still don't know if they will, but if they do, I don't think they're going to do a 3-part bonanza. Like I think it's going to be a much smaller experience. Now, if it's 10, we might end up with 2 chapters, though we do have a 10-2, so maybe not.
Sure.
So it's such a tough.
Final
Fantasy is so convoluted. I do think it might be more simple for them to go with something like 9 or something like 4.
If I could jump in too, speaking of how convoluted Final Fantasy 7 story is, and how you might not need to play remake, you might even need to play a little bit of Ever Crisis too. Apparently, like I was playing through it and I was like, I don't know what the hell's going on right now.
I think you're right on that, because this game, not to spoil the very beginning of this game, but this game starts with Zack, who is the main character of Crisis Core Reunion, whatever it's called. And I was very confused to start this game. Went to Google, did a little Googling, saw some things I maybe shouldn't have. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm killing this because I don't want to be spoiled of anything. But I do wonder if, depending on how this story progresses, and if I get to a point where I'm like, I need more context, I might pivot back to do Crisis Core Reunion potentially. But Jaskrin in the chat says Final Fantasy 7 remake. I wouldn't put it past them at this point. Final question. This is actually not about Final Fantasy, but it has the same kind of thought process of the remake conversation. Obviously, we already have this for Resident Evil. We've gotten it 3 times now with 2, 3, and 4. Do we think there's another franchise of this size, of this caliber from our childhood that we think would be worth getting the remake treatment? Maybe it's as big as this, maybe it's a multiple entry thing, maybe it's just a reimagining in a much bigger scale. But Mondo, is there anything that you think that you would want to see in the remake conversation, like Square Enix is doing with 7?
This took me all day to think about. When you asked me this morning, I was like, damn, what game would I want to see this happen with? And now they came and mentioned like just this Japanese game renaissance. I was thinking about this before we got on the episode, but now that you've been saying that, I'm like, oh, even more so. Especially after I've played not Infinite Dragon, Like a Dragon, Like a Dragon, and I haven't played Infinite Wealth yet. Ooh, but seeing those games, they reminded me of a game that I love so much and is in my top 5, and I would really love to see Shenmue be remade. Like seeing Like a Dragon, seeing that charm, seeing this open world, and thinking about, what would Shenmue feel like and look like? Because I have that game on PlayStation, and it's currently installed on my PlayStation because I want to go back and play it so bad. But my goodness, is that game janky? Like, holy moly, the jank is real in that game. And And so it did not age well, in my opinion, in that sense. And I think that game could benefit off of just being brought to current generation. Not even just graphics, just again, just that open world. Because that was one of the first games I played that I was like, man, I'm really living a life out here. That game had me forklifting. Had a full-time job in that game. I was up in that arcade all day, throwing darts, playing mini games, yada yada. And so that's a game that I would love to see remade in the style, maybe not the style and like gameplay wise, like turn-based strategy. But just for it to look and play like that.
I would love that because I never played Shenmue. And it's one of those things where it's too late. Like the boat has left.
Yeah, it's too late.
The
boat
has left the
sailors have left, Patrick. Yes.
Correct. Kane, what about you? Does anything jump to mind for you that you'd like to see?
Yeah, I have two. The first I would love to see is Earthbound getting a Link's Awakening style 2D 0.5 style reimagining. I think would be really, really cool. I think Earthbound is one of those properties Nintendo just completely forsakes unless it's either in Japan or they're showing up in Smash Bros. But that being said, set that one aside. I would fucking kill to get Dragon Quest 8.
Okay.
Dragon Quest 8 remade, even if it just looks like Dragon Quest 11, like I'm totally content with that. We do know that we're getting a Dragon Quest 12 sometime. We're probably going to see more of it this year. I know we got a teaser, I think last year or the year before. Rumor has it might even come out as early as this year or 2025. But yeah, I think one of those games, Dragon Quest 8, is one of those where like that's one of the rare JRPGs where like the stakes are not very high. And I don't know why. Like I feel like that's what I love about like the Yakuza, Yakuza Like a Dragon and Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, respectively, is that the stakes aren't. The world will end if we don't succeed.
Yeah.
And so I love the more contained, smaller experiences where it's like, hey, it could just be as simple as like we just need to go beat the shit out of this one dude. I kind of love that. It's more simple, and I think Dragon Quest 8 is a beautiful game, and I think that it would do really. I think it really could like spark a lot of interest, especially today.
Cool.
If we saw a remake of that.
Yeah, I'd like that because I've actually never played a single Dragon Quest.
They're so good.
Yeah.
They're so good.
For me, two also jump to mind. One is a game that I've never played, and one is a game that I would just like to see. The one I've never played is Suikoden. But I hear so many people talk about that, like with the old school JRPG conversation. It's a very highly regarded JRPG, and I'm sure it holds up just fine in its current form. But I would love to see like a modern remake of it, similar to Final Fantasy VII, as a new person to the franchise. It'd be cool to see like what does a new take look like. And a game that I have played that isn't a JRPG, but I think, and this is something that people have brought up before, like there have been people on Twitter. I know Timur Hussein from GameSpot is big on this train. Legacy of Kain. I think that would be really cool to see what and like he is always saying like he'd like to see From do it, I think is what he says, which would be cool. But I would love to see.
The story would be too coherent.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I don't think they could do
it. But I would love because Legacy of Kain is one of those games where like I remember playing it at my friend's house where I also said, I told him, I think I've told the story in the podcast before, that I had played and beaten Brave Fencer Musashi before, just to sound cool. And then he'd be like, what do I do here? He's like, I can't really remember this part, which that'd be another great remake, Brave Fencer Musashi. But playing Legacy of Kain at his house, I never had it myself. And so I've only played like a little bit of it. But I remember being so impressed by it. I was like, man, this game looks so cool. It feels so cool. I'd love to see what that looks like today with how good graphics are and how good that kind of gameplay can feel. That'd be pretty dope. John in the chat says Bulletstorm remake. I don't know that we're ready.
The world will never be ready for that. There is one thing though that I've like, it wouldn't be a remake, but kind of on the vein of that I think would be really cool. Is I would love to see Duke Nukem come back.
Okay.
But set where Duke Nukem is like he's just a washed up old guy that like people are like this fucking loser. And he has to like kind of come out of retirement and is a piece of shit and everyone hates him. And like he has to reckon with his past and turn it into like God of War levels of like introspection. But
Duke
it's
Nukem
Duke
finally
Nukem.
goes to therapy.
Yeah, Duke Nukem. Yeah, but it's like a 55-year-old Duke Nukem with a beer gut who's like, the ladies don't love me. I have illegitimate children all over the world and they hate me. And the aliens have attacked and no one's calling my name anymore. And like I kind of would fuck with that so hard, you know?
I kind of like the idea of a Duke Nukem like what do we call the games not like a novel, what do we call that?
Visual novel.
A visual novel Duke Nukem where it's just conversation, you're just making choices, reckoning with Duke Nukem being an absolute terror of a man to women, to basically everyone that's not a white man, that he needs to reckon for his crimes in conversation. I think that'd be great.
I love it.
That's funny. And then also Rabbit128 also says new Def Jam game. That would be dope if we could get a Fight for New York remake.
That would be amazing, and unfortunately, it would probably never happen.
Never.
Could you imagine a Def Jam fight for Atlanta?
Get
Killer Mike in there.
That'd be crazy.
Killer Mike going up against Big Boy and Andre 3000 would throw hands on with that game. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, let us know, what games would you like to see remade in the style of John says I can only get so hard in the style of Final Fantasy VII remake. We got one more story to talk about before we go for today. It's about The Last of Us Season 2. We got some casting news. I'm pulling here from Tom Ivan at VGC. According to Variety, Danny Ramirez from Top Gun Maverick and Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to play Manny, a loyal soldier whose sunny outlook belies the pain of old wounds and a fear that he will fail his friends when they need him most. Tati Gabrielle from You and the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina will play Nora, a military medic struggling to come to terms with the sins of her past. Ariella Bearer from How to Blow Up a Pipeline and Runaways is going to play Mel, a young doctor whose commitment to saving lives is challenged by the realities of war and tribalism. And finally, Spencer Lord from Riverdale and Family Law is going to play Owen, a gentle soul trapped in a warrior's body, condemned to fight an enemy he refuses to hate. Let me pull up the graphic here.
Yeah, let me see some faces.
So these are the faces. So I don't recognize most of them by name, but now that I see their face, I do. Like I remember this guy from Falcon and Winter Soldier who's playing Manny. I remember liking him in Falcon and Winter Soldier. The show sucked, but I thought he was pretty good. Yeah, he's a good actor. I've not seen You, but I've heard that Tati Gabrielle is good.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, I've heard that she's really good, so that's exciting. Yeah. And these other two, I don't know. I've not seen Riverdale or How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which Ariella's in. But in terms of looks, I think it all works from a look standpoint. What I really hope, especially knowing that we have Danny Ramirez and Ariella and Tati Gabrielle, who I'm sure these other two actors are great too, but I'm hoping that we get more from these four characters. I'm hoping that we get a little, because like, especially Manny and Nora seemed to be such interesting characters, because we get a fair amount of Owen and Mel in the game. Mm-hmm. But Nora and Manny, I feel like we didn't get a ton of, and I think there's probably a lot of really interesting stuff that we could do or that we could see with those characters. But at a glance, like how are you guys feeling about this casting update for season 2? Do you care at all?
Kimmy, you go first. You're more of a movie buff, show buff than.
Yeah, so one of the things that also came out earlier today too that I saw is that they apparently had rented out a cabin, or they rented out like a former, or maybe it's still like a ski resort that they were like shooting in.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. Which gives me a lot of thought of like, what the fuck is season 2 going to be?
Sure.
So my big thing is less about like the capabilities of the actors, because we look at someone like Bella Ramsey, who didn't really have like some massive back catalog of work to build off of and put out an incredible performance as Ellie. But with that being said, though, part of me wonders, and this has been my thought process, the big opening of part 2 will be the climax of the end of the season. So my hope is
that's what you think?
That's what I think. And what I'm hoping is, if they do it like that, we will get more time with these actors as their respective characters, so that we do get to spend more time with them. Because you're right. Characters like Manny and Nora, while they do get screen time in the game, it's very limited.
Yeah.
And I do think it would be really cool to spend more time with the other side of part 2 before the events that lead into or the others, the group from part 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
mean.
would love to see like a lead in, and I don't, because I think the truth is, yes, one season I think was enough for us to be able to fall in love with Pedro Pascal as Joel, but I don't think it's enough time for it to have that same emotional resonance if you start season 2 off like they did part 2.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Sure.
Because you had so many years and so many people had played this game so many times over and over and over and over again in the lead in. Joel became legitimate video game daddy. Where like, yes, I do think that people love Pedro Pascal, but I think an average viewer that's not connected to the games needs more time with him to have that same impact that we did. Because we got to spend 13 to 15 hours in part 1 playing as Joel. We were Joel. So I think it's really important that they take time to flesh out some more there. And I think doing that to keep the momentum, the pace, and everything that you want with a season 2, we need to spend way more time with those characters.
Interesting. So instead of kind of with the structure of the first game, we'll skate around spoilers, but with the structure of the second game, the kind of what Naughty Dog tries to do is get you to flip your opinion on some of these characters.
Yeah.
You're thinking that they'll just go the way that from beginning to end of, we want you to like these characters, and then maybe we'll have you change your mind.
So I think the thing is here is the way that you flip the script, and you can do it a really smart way, is that you get to start to like these characters. Then they do something so fucking horrendous, you hate them. You go into season 3 hating these people, right? Just, I don't want to even look at them on screen. Then you have to go with the
try to re-earn it.
Exactly. 3. I think that works. I think that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they'll do it.
Sure. Yeah. Because I wonder if instead of it being a season 1 or season 2 end, if it's like a 3/4 of the way through season 2 or halfway through season 2, because I think the just the amount of story, unless they really add a lot to it, I don't know that there's enough to fill a season before you get to what essentially is like the inciting incident of the second game. It's what sets in motion
everything,
the point of the game, right? Like the kind of the main plot point. So I don't know that you can do it to where it's all the way at the end, but I do think that you're onto something, and that I could see them with these 4 especially building in more time with them, so that it's not just an immediate boom, okay, now let's hit the ground running kind of thing. Because I think too, like with Owen and Mel especially, even though they were in the second game a lot, their game or their stories are really abruptly ended for a purpose. But I wonder too if we just get more to make it not feel as abrupt, perhaps.
Well, and I think too, I think the other thing, and I feel like I'm taking a lot of airtime here on this, but I think the big thing for me is that when we had, I think the perfect example here is the Bill and Frank story.
Sure.
Was not in the game. Sure, we had letters. We kind of had some sprinkling of an idea. And Bill was only in the game for maybe 45 total minutes of gameplay. Maybe.
Yeah.
And you had a
chapter.
I mean, he's now considered like an icon in history of television, right?
Sure, yeah. Emmy winning.
So can you imagine, though? Hear me out. They write like a whole season of television of like scrap material that could have or would have been in the games previous.
Could.
I think that like I would love to be like, I know what's going to happen through the course of season 1 and whatever's going to happen with video game related portion. I would love to be thrown off guard by it, including a lot more information or story developed characters, narrative, whatever, of like, this is other things that are happening that you never got to see. I would love to have just more in that world. So I would love that.
Yeah, I could get down with that, because I also wonder with this, like, there's always the like nefarious like Warner Brothers at the top kind of thing of like, how can we milk this? How can we make more money? Because ultimately, they're making the show to make money, right? So that's a way of extending it to keep faces around, to keep names around, and adding it, having Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin at the helm of writing. I'm sure they could fill really good shit in that. But Mondo, any thoughts from you here? Anything working for you?
Outside of them building on like Manny and them, because I think Manny needs to be built on. Like he's a character who I felt had a lot to say about everything going on. Like he was very emotional in that game.
Yeah.
And it was just like, all right, cool. Like how the hell did we get here though?
Right. Right.
And so I feel like there's a lot of story to be told there. And so I do think we are going to get more of a build up to that moment. But I also think that there's also probably plenty story to tell. Maybe not story to tell, but character arc to build in the change in Joel's and oh my god, her name is slipping my mind right now. Ellie's relationship.
Yeah.
And where it goes following what happens in season 1. Where I think the way stories are told in video games, you can throw us into that big plot point moment early in the game, and then allow us to find our way into the story. Where I feel like that's a little harder to do in a show, especially when you left people off in that cliffhanger. It's like, all right, cool. Like, where are we? Yeah. I don't know if they're going to do that massive time jump and just skip over everything. I feel like you could spend a few episodes.
Sure. Yeah. Cause there's a 4-year jump at the beginning of the game.
Like showing how she feels in that initial, at that initial point. Cause then I also think that then builds on everything that happens afterwards, even more so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I agree that it could be end of season thing. It could be a middle of the season thing.
Man, I would love it if season 2 is just that 4-year jump.
Because remember,
the beginning of 2.
It's only going to be like 8 episodes. It's freaking it's HBO.
Sure.
Yeah.
Man, that's good. Now you got me excited.
So I want to say something so bad, but it's going to give things away. So I'm going to say it after the show. But
sure. Okay. Yeah. Because I also, this conversation, and also like the more I've been thinking about the show in general, I'm pretty confident that we're not going to do the same time jump where like chunk 1 of the game, reset chunk 2 of the game. I don't think they're going to do it that way. I think it's going to be all interspersed together. I just don't think that would work for TV. I think that's a style of storytelling that worked for the game for a lot of people. A lot of people didn't work with, but I don't think that TV can do that. I don't think you can not have certain characters in like an entire season of a show. I just like Game of Thrones is the perfect example. Books 4 and 5. Book 4 only has a ton or like so many characters aren't in book 4. They come in book 5. Main characters, Jon Snow, Daenerys, like they're just not in the 4th book at all. But in the show, they weave book 4 and 5 into one thing because they just you can't have like the main face of the franchise not be in a season of television.
I also feel like people didn't like that split in the game because they didn't like that split. I didn't like that split. I didn't like it. I was like, hell no.
For sure.
I'm done playing this game.
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think of the casting. I'm sure in the coming weeks. Oh yeah, go ahead.
This wasn't recent news, but I looked because I was looking this up before the show. Catherine O'Hara is also like an unknown character, and I love her.
Can't wait.
I don't know what they're gonna do with her, and that also just lends into we're adding new characters, like we're adding story that's not in the game. And I'm so excited to see what her character is going to be.
What if season 2 we don't have Joel and Ellie at all? It's just Catherine O'Hara is now the main character.
I'm here for it, man.
Oh, I know you are.
Oh man.
But yeah, let us know what you think of the casting so far with these 4 editions and what your thoughts on season 2 is going to be. We're not going to see it for a while. It's probably going to be at least a year until we see it. But and that's our show, folks. That we've covered all the things we came to cover. Mondo, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a while, but I always love having you on the show, especially the wealth of knowledge you have around Final Fantasy VII. For the folks at home that already follow you, you have a little news for them. But before you get into that, if they don't follow you, where can they find you on social media? What are you working on? What do you want to tell the folks at home at the Spotlight Games audience about Mondo's world?
Well, you can find me at Chancletamangu on everything. Gamertag 2, PSN, Steam. Feel free to add me. But you might want to send me a message because if I get friend invites that I don't recognize, denied. But also, it's funny because like I said in the pre-show, I was supposed to announce this in another podcast that I did with you guys, but depression's a bitch, let me tell you. And so we're out of that rut, and I'm really happy to announce that later this week I'll be launching my new podcast. And it's been a while since I've been on a podcast. As you guys know, I used to do the Save Point with my co-host Alyssa Rosa. And we no longer do the show, and I've really missed podcasting. Yeah. And I really hate talking about video games on Twitter because it is so difficult to have a nuanced conversation on there.
It is.
And so we're just going to create a space to talk about games. And so later this week, if you follow me on social media, you'll see the promo for a podcast called We Talking About Games. And you'll be able to see more there.
Hell yeah.
By the time this episode goes live, it'll probably be live
for sure.
So y'all live listeners, y'all are getting the first scoop.
Getting that first scoop. Follow Chancletamangu everywhere on socials because I'm sure We Talking About Games is going to have their own socials too, maybe potentially.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to be the vehicle, but I might have to. I was thinking about that today. I was like,
we'll see.
And I was looking at your guys' account, and I was like, oh yeah.
I mean, I'll be the first to say I don't post nearly enough on the Spotlight Games socials as I should, because you got to be there every day, and I'm not there every day, but that's okay. We can all be better. Cayman, where can the folks follow you at home?
You can follow me on Twitter at the Dumpster Boy.
We lost him.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you can follow me on. I'm not going to give you my personal Instagram account because I don't want you creeps stalking me. Actually, I just never post on my own personal Instagram account.
That's true.
Just Twitter.
You can follow me at Patrick Schweig. You can follow the pod on Twitter at Spot Games Pod and at Spotlight Games Pod. Everywhere else, that's Twitter. Nope, that's Instagram. That's TikTok. That's Twitch. That's YouTube. Make sure you follow us over there. So they know when we go live, especially on Twitch, because we're affiliates now, so we can actually make a little cash money if you're subscribing. So especially those of you that have Amazon Prime, we would love it if you sent your Twitch Prime sub to us over here at Spotlight Games Pod on Twitch. But until next week, thanks for being here. We'll be back later this week with a Spotlight Games stream of some kind. We'll talk about on social. We'll talk about on the Discord. Until then,
for democracy.
For democracy.